Learning to be aware of the opportunities for the great photographs that are constantly around you is one of the easiest ways that you can improve your photography skills. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 simple tips that are going to help you become a far better photographer. In the late 1960s, 35,000 feet above the ground, William Eggleston was taking a plane ride across America. The waitress had just brought him a drink and he placed it down on the tray table next to his seat. Now, to most people, they wouldn't give it a second glance, they'd take a sip, carry on reading their in-flight magazine. But William Eggleston picked up his camera and he captured this beautiful photograph. Now, that's because Eggleston had a skill, and that skill was learning to see, to be aware of the opportunities around him for photographs. And this is the skill that you are going to learn today. Awareness for photographs is kind of broken down into sort of 3 broad ideas: seeing, the familiar, and observation. When you follow these tips to improve your photography skills, your images are going to become better and better. And certainly the more that you practice this visual exercise, the greater is going to be your ability to see the photographs that are all around you. When we go about our everyday business, we tend to screen out a lot of the things that we see all the time, because otherwise we would just be overwhelmed with information. But of course, this screening out of things is the biggest problem to seeing great photographs, is that we tend to just ignore all the things that are around us. And the more that you can be aware of what surrounds you, then the more opportunities you're going to have to create better photographs. So your first goal is to become more aware of your surroundings. Take a moment just to look around you. It doesn't matter where you are. Just study even the minor things, actually especially the minor things, and you're going to start becoming aware of the opportunities for photographs all around you. Practice increasing this simple awareness. Take a few minutes every day just to study what's around you. If you're at a desk, see how the keyboard, the shapes and the lines of the keyboards, the way that the pens and possibly a staple or something are arranged. Is there light from the window playing across the window, the wall behind the screen? When you're outside, observe how the light sort of plays across different things. We're in the winter now, so the light outside looks very different to how it does during the summer. When you're at home, look in your kitchen. See all the dirty dishes in your sink. If it's anything like mine, it's going to be terribly filthy. And see what interesting things you can find to photograph there. Vision these objects within the confines of a photograph, within the frame. If you start practicing this awareness until it becomes second nature, then these skills are going to be like a rocky training montage of visual exercise as you kind of bash through to creating those amazing photographs. Edward Weston said that anything that excites me for any reasons, I will photograph. Not searching for unusual subject matter, but making the commonplace unusual. Each day you see things almost subconsciously. The actions that you take, their routine, and the objects that are involved, they're terribly familiar because you use them all the time. Think about when you wake up in the morning. You throw back the covers and you don't really give that a second thought. But that blanket, those sheets that you throw back, they have become a series of mountains and valleys holding mysteries. How does the light play off of them? This is how the most obvious things can be elevated once you start seeing them in a different way. I want you to spend some time to try and see what every little item that surrounds you, the possibilities for photographing them in there. I want you to spend time throughout the day just to being aware of the possibilities contained in all these objects that you've just dismissed as being humdrum everyday things, because they have fantastic opportunity in there to be photographed. By looking at these sheets and things like that are just everyday objects and being aware of the possibilities within them, when you are then confronted with images and situations that can be spectacular, then you're going to be more prepared to take what has been given to you and elevate it to a much higher level, because you are aware of the opportunities that surround you. And the more that you practice, the better your photography is going to become. You know, every day you're passing by hundreds, thousands of objects that seem so familiar that you never ever are giving them a second look. The very fact that they are ordinary gives them a power that is completely unique. Nobody expects you to create a photograph of a mug or, you know, some papers on the floor, or, and yeah, I'm pointing to things in my room, you know, a table full of notes and old bits and bobs. Nobody expects you to create amazing photographs of these. And of course, that's why they are stunningly arresting when we do see them, because they're things that are familiar to us, presented in a way that has become unfamiliar. Good photographs of familiar things help you revise your thinking. They make you reconsider your surroundings, and they open up doors to worlds that were previously sort of blocked off from you. As soon as these shackles are taken off your vision, then all of a sudden there's an explosion of opportunity awaiting you. That a pair of shoes could be more arresting than a sweeping landscape. Probably more so because they are unique and personal to you. Photographing the familiar is going to rejuvenate your photography, and you might find at first that you're having a little bit trouble finding things to photograph. You know, sounds like a good idea, I'm going to photograph the ordinary, and all of a sudden you're sort of stuck. You're kind of going, well, where are the ordinary things? Well, they're all around you. It's just you've discounted them as potential subjects for photographing because they are so ordinary. By seeking out things that are ordinary to photograph, you're going to become frustrated. And of course, it's a bit of a catch-22, because you're going to look for normal, everyday objects to photograph, and then you're going to start trying to find interesting, normal, everyday objects to photograph, and which is kind of missing the point, is that you want to find things that are trivial and not vaguely interesting. Find things that are completely and everyday normal. I'm looking here at a radiator in front of me. I cannot think of something that's more everyday, commonplace, and boring than a radiator. Photograph that radiator in as many different ways as possible. See how the light plays on it right now. You know, the light is coming down, it's hitting the curtain, and it's playing across the little divots in the radiator. That's a normal thing we just discount. But how amazing would it be to photograph that radiator in a way that amazes other people? Don't become frustrated. Don't worry about it. Frustration is a normal and everyday occurrence, especially for people who are beginning photography. Now, of course, the question is, what are you going to do to overcome it? The biggest thing I find is that just to remember that you are causing your own frustration. Just relax and loosen up. Don't try and rush things. Don't expect to, all of a sudden, like a switch coming on, that it's going to be easier for you. These take time. It takes time to practice. There is no wrong, there is no right. And that's why it's a tricky thing to learn. And I want to encourage you just to photograph as much as you possibly can of everyday objects, just anything that's humdrum. If you see something and think, oh, I'll take a photograph of that, then take a different angle, move around, explore the object. Don't just rush around blindly photographing things. Take time for you to tease out the ideas within these images. You are developing a skill, and new awareness and this new skill is going to take time. I always find it useful just to kind of wait until I'm alone when I'm doing this. It's without the distraction of other people, because they're going to ask you, they're going to say, what do you do? How do you know? What's going on with it? Why are you photographing that piece of rubbish on the floor? Just do it when you're by yourself and you have no pressures, and there's nothing forcing you to take a specific picture. Just take pictures of whatever tickles your fancy. Just, it doesn't have to be what everybody else thinks is cool. If you think it's awesome, take some pictures of it, explore the possibilities. I don't want you to worry about taking good photographs, right? This is not about taking amazing photographs that are going to get tons of likes on Instagram. It's about you practicing your skills and finding the belief in you that you can see the world differently. I hope you're finding this type of content helpful for you in improving your photography skills. Has this series on the art of seeing inspired you to see in different ways? Please let me know in the comments below. I love to see what you guys sort of come up with, and I promise I will try and answer every single comment. observation lets you become familiar with the things that you want to photograph. Now, it's a bit of an odd concept, sort of like observation, because you're always sort of looking and you're observing. And that's, of course, the point of this thing is you want to find things that interest you and then observe them. And by observing, what I mean is think about how they will look, really looking at them. If I think about my house outside, it snowed yesterday, so the land looked very different to when it does today, where the sun has been out and the snow has kind of melted. The trees across the road, right now they're bare and their fingers are reaching up into the skies. But imagine in my head how they're going to look during the summer when they're full of leaves and the light plays across them in a different way. And this is what we're talking about in regards to sort of observing, is looking at something and seeing how it reacts. See how the light plays off of it. That road sometimes that you drive down when you're coming home from work, at some point in the year, maybe the light comes down across it and it blinds you. So you're like, I can't see where I'm going. And then you end up in a ditch, right? But think about that. How different that road can look in different seasons and different times of the days. And this is the whole point, is you can make notes about the various things that sort of you think have potential and see how different times of the years or different weather conditions or light conditions, especially light conditions, can change the way that thing looks and feels. Of course, when you are the careful observer, you are going to almost precompose this image before you're releasing the shutter. And that's, for me, I think that's the hallmark of a great photographer, is that they are pre-seeing the thing that they want to photograph. They're taking their time to look, to react to observe, to be aware of, and then crafting the photograph in their heads, not just randomly shooting things and making adjustments as they go along. Part of this observation and precomposing the image inside your head is the question, will what you see show up in the photograph? Now, there's only one way to find out, of course, and that is to take the photograph. And as you get more and more experience, the photograph that you take is going to match closer with what you think the photograph should look like before you've taken it. You're going to become reliable and insightful in your photography, and that's a really good way, again, of improving your image taking. The great photographers are always on the lookout for potential ideas of photographs. If you look at somebody like Larry Burroughs, who was a famous Vietnam War photographer, he spent 3 days with a platoon of men before he even started taking any photographs, because he was thinking about the images that could be created. He would go out on patrol with them. He would fly in their helicopters. He was planning the photographs in his head. And that's why his documentary photography is so worth looking at, has so much impact, is because he was seeing the potential in things. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting that you go off to Vietnam and jump up in combat helicopters, but make notes. Whenever you're driving around, have that notepad with you. Sketch down ideas. Remember places and things that have this potential. Write down anything that comes to mind. If you're going to try and keep it all in your head, you're going to forget. And of course, if you forget, then you can't be taking the photograph that you thought about previously. Keeping a notepad and jotting down ideas of potential photographs probably doesn't feel like the most creative or spontaneous thing in the world. I'm sure there's a lot of photographers out there who feel that they just must react to their surroundings and I'm just going to create photographs without any sort of ideas at all. They're just going to happen. I'd like you to take a step back, to just be a bit more thoughtful about your process, about how you approach the photographs. And by writing down ideas, you're also going to energize your brain into thinking about photography or thinking about the world as a potential photograph. And that's, of course, the whole aim of this, is to give your mind some photographic exercise. Challenge those conceptions or those preconceptions and rip them apart. Don't settle for being ordinary. Photograph things in the least expected way that you can possibly imagine. Thanks ever so much for joining me today. If you found this content useful, please do subscribe to the channel and give it a little thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks once again, and I'll see you soon.